To all those above me that watch over me, to all of you, my fave parapeeps on this side of the veil, welcome. This is the Paranormal Ministry. I'm your host, Shawn Whittington. I'm a seminarian in the United States Old Catholic Church, and I'm coming to you live from my haunted house, my very haunted house. Been quiet today, but there has been one paranormal issue that I want to point out to everybody. Take a good look, see if you can see it. Very paranormal. Do you see it yet? My cold sore. What am I still in high school? So, to the friend of mine that said, "Have you been kissing someone other than your wife?" No. And to the friend that said, "You look feverish. You've got a fever. That's a fever blister." No. I just took my temp. I don't have a fever. To the friend that said, "You've got herpes." Well, actually that could be right. I don't know, but I looked it up, and yes, I guess some cold sores can't be caused by herpes. So let's pray I don't have herpes. But yeah, I guess I haven't had a cold sore on my lips since my school days. So I think I'm just probably stressed out over some things which we may get into on the show today. Speaking of that, if there's anything you want to know about me and my wife and our ministry work, go to our website www.ghost-b-gone.biz. Anything you want to know about us is there. My book, my course, uh, everything. So today is a very special day on the Paranormal Ministry. It is the beginning of a new series. This first Friday and every first Friday for the remainder of 2023 will be a series of mini monthly lectures, if you will. She doesn't like to call them lectures, but I'll call them mini monthly lectures from angelologist, demonologist, the one and only, my friend, Ira Wolfnesson. And today is her first day here as my co host for her series. So without further ado, brothers and sisters, please welcome to the show the one and only Ira Wolfnesson.
The wind is blowing so hard here right now. It's like 60 miles per hour. And there is this weird noise that you're going to hear in the background. It goes, "Arr, arr," and it sounds like a trapped animal. It's my
Uh
door.
oh.
It's my
Okay.
door.
I'm
It's
glad you brought that up
it's
because
not a
someone would
demon.
someone would definitely say something about that. And
Yep.
I will tell people too, if you hear banging, my right outside my office window here and 1 yard over, my neighbor is building some huge elaborate thing in his backyard. And so you may hear some sawing and hammering and
Yeah,
him
but we
yelling
know
at
what that is.
it.
We know what that sounds like. This sounds like a demon caught in a, I don't know, in the garbage can out there or something.
Well, I'm so excited that I'm going to see you every month here on the show. I I know a lot of people have sent me in stuff. People are excited about the series, and uh, and actually, it makes my life easy. Uh, 3 days a month now. I've got you coming on the first Friday of every month, Dr. Joy Pugh the second
Oh, I
Monday
love
of
her.
every month, but that starts
Love
next
her.
month. And then, of course, Susan Ahern the last Monday of the month. So on those 3 nights when I have co-hosts, um, my life's a lot easier. I don't have to stress so much about trying to prepare an interview. But I do have some questions for you, if time permitting. But I know today you just want to, let your hair down and speak from the heart. And I want to let everybody know that any time that Ira's here, the chat room will remain open. And if you're watching and you have questions for her or I, please type them into the chat room. Zach will see them. He'll pop them up there, and we'll answer your questions.
Yeah, one of the first questions that you sort of briefed me on was about animals as symbols. Like, do they have meaning when they just appear? And that's going to be, perhaps I can just do it next month on the 6th. That's called the divine language, or the
Oh,
language of
very
the
cool.
birds, the forbidden language. It's God's language. And yes, they do. And so I wanted to just put that out there, that I'll probably go into that deeper if I do that lecture next month, which I totally can.
That
A
is
lecture
so
on
cool.
language and the
That is
symbology
so cool.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, maybe you can at least answer this for me because I
Yep.
always feel bad. I feel bad when I kill a spider.
Oh.
I,
Yeah.
everybody says everything has a meaning. I feel bad if I kill an ant.
Yeah.
I feel bad if there's a mouse in the house or a rat in the house and I
Oh,
trap them and have to
yeah.
kill them. I feel
No.
bad. I'm dry and I hate bees. Sharon's deathly allergic to them. I know I'm not, but like, the other day I was driving and a bee flew in my car and
Mm.
I almost drove off the road, but I took a deep breath, I calmed down, I talked to the bee. I said, okay, listen, I'm going to give this a shot here. I'm just,
Okay.
it's time for you to leave, you can leave and leave the window down. Don't sting me. Whatever your message is or whatever your meaning is, I'll look into it later. But I'm cool with it. Just, be cool. And a couple of times he landed on my hand on the steering wheel and crawled up my arm, and then he was gone. I panicked for no reason. But yeah, that would be a great topic next month to go into because
Yeah.
I get that a lot from people.
Yeah, it's pretty much m- an occult thing. I mean, the symbology of within the occult, it's very, very familiar in alchemy. But I'm Catholic, and so so, but I know what I know, you know, because I did it for 2 decades. I was an occultist. But today's lecture is about animals going to heaven. And before I became Catholic, that was one of my last holdouts about becoming a Christian because I wasn't raised Christian. Christianity was like, ugh, in my family with my circle of friends. But I found such magnificence, and I found that in the Bible there was an answer for everything. So my last holdout was all of the priests and people that would lecture. People would always ask, do animals go to heaven? And they'd all kind of say, well, we don't know, they're different. And then I had a Jewish friend that would come on my social media page, which I no longer have, but he would come on my social media page and say, no, animals go somewhere else. And I was horrified. I was just horrified. Okay, now we've got Judaism and Christianity, none of them saying, yeah, of course animals go to heaven. But I knew God would have an answer. Once I became Catholic, it was kind of a supernatural thing that happened, that I became Catholic. That's a whole nother podcast. But I knew God would have an answer for me. And so I dove into the Bible and I did a lot of research, and sure enough, yes, animals go to heaven. And I don't know why the church fathers don't talk about that openly, because there are a lot of suffering children and people who love their pets and they want to know that. So if you look at all of the people at their deathbed scenes, they have visions, or, well, they're real things that happen to them. They're seeing into the other realm. They'll see the people they love. Very rarely. I mean, I could actually probably feel comfortable saying never do they see the people they hate. Right as they're in hospice or they're very close to death, they see the people they love, and they also see their pets. Like, that's a thing. That's very common, in all the research where they document people's last visions. So I started as a Christian, as a Catholic. I started doing my thing and I took a deep dive. And Pope Paul VI once told a little boy, one day we will see our pets in the eternity of Christ. So that guy, at least, had done his due diligence. The other Pope, John Paul II, said animals have souls and are just as near to God as men are. Okay, that's promising. But I was still like, they never really talk about it. And then everybody argues over it. Why are people so against, animals going to heaven, or what is that? So there is nowhere in the Bible or even in the ancient Nag Hammadi or Dead Sea Scrolls or anywhere where God says animals have no soul. They don't go to heaven. There's nothing. God never says that anywhere. There is no, I mean, we have Google search and document search, and it's just not there. God never says that. So when you look to the Bible, you notice that ancient people were really close to the land. So they observed the foxes and the wolves and the rabbits, caring for their young, the birds in the nest. And they also were very close to their shepherd dogs. They had dogs that would help them, out herding their livestock. So they knew, as ancient people, no one had to tell them that animals didn't have a soul and that they didn't love, that they weren't conscious and had logic. But as modern people, because they didn't need to be told, and we don't find it in the Bible or any of the doctrine, we've just assumed that animals are less than us. A lot of the old church fathers, in the Middle Ages, they didn't have pets. So they didn't have the relationships that we have. They weren't observing domesticated animals like we do. Now there are experiments that are done with MRIs on dogs' brains where we see the same area of the brain that lights up for love when they're given something that smells of their master. So when they think of their master, the same area of their brain as ours will light up for the feeling of love. So animals, now we have the research to say they truly do love, which science has told us for a long time. Well, no, they're a different level of consciousness. We don't know if they really love. We kind of think they know you're going to feed them, which makes zero sense, right? They mourn. So in the Bible, when God created Adam, he created the physical body first, and then he breathed life, the life soul, his soul, in through his nostrils. Then Adam came alive. He was not alive before God breathed the soul into him. Now, the interesting part about this, I have to read a little bit, okay?
Sure.
The interesting part about this is in the Hebrew transliteration for living soul, which is what God breathed into Adam, it's called the Nefesh Hayah. And Hayah means living, and Nefesh means soul. So it's in Hebrew. It says God breathed the Nefesh Hayah into Adam, and then Adam was alive. But when God discusses animals in Genesis 1:30, the same words are used. So in our translation in English, it just says life. Animals have life. But in Hebrew, it uses both Hayah and Nefesh in the same passage. So it says in the ancient version, yes, animals have a living soul. So now we've established in the Bible, animals have a soul. So in Corinthians, it says, if there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. So anything created by God is a creature. So angels are creatures, humans are creatures, all the animal kingdom, they're all creatures of God. And so we know that angels are spirit souls, but with animals, we have that question. We're told as humans we do. But in Corinthians, it literally says, if there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. So animals not only have a natural body, but they have a spiritual body. They just don't go into the ground. And there are other biblical passages that say that as well, but it's less clear. It's debatable. But if you take the cumulative body of mentions of animals having a soul, it's huge. So I'm still baffled.
Well, you had mentioned the church fathers briefly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting that you brought that up because I was just watching a show on EWTN the other morning, and I wish I would have written down the priest's name, but the priest on that show was talking about animals going to heaven. And my Bishop James Long, he totally believes it, that they go to heaven.
Well, he's a high
Um,
functioning priest, though. He's studied philosophy, and he's not your average, not your average dude.
yeah,
But yeah. So there are also examples of animals in heaven. How much more simpler can it get? So in Isaiah, we hear about the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf with the this. And you know that passage, right? It's Isaiah 11. All kinds of animals in heaven. And then in Revelation, it says, and the armies of heaven, arrayed in fine linen, white and pure, were following him on white horses. So, so we know horses are in heaven.
Yeah.
I mean, people take the Bible, that's the final word on all this. I know in your vast audience of diversity, maybe not so, but for someone like us, it's important.
I'm going to ask your opinion on something. There's no wrong answer here. But like for many, many years, back in the day, I used to give ghost tours of Craig Road Pet Cemetery, which is here in town.
That's
Because
weird. You're
yeah,
so
let me tell you
weird.
why. Because back in the day, long before it became a pet cemetery, it was a human cemetery, and it was this huge chunk of land. And over the years, eventually, um,
Need I
half
ask
the land.
where did the humans get?
Well, they were
Where?
there first. It was first a human, and they left them there. So half of the let's imagine this football field divided in half. The people that owned it sold half of it to the new owners that kept their part, a
Okay.
human cemetery. The part that they kept, they turned into a pet cemetery, but they left the people that were buried there still buried there. Now, here there's a law in Vegas here that you can leave in your will, I want to be buried with my pet, but you cannot have your pet buried with a human in the human cemetery. I
Hmm.
don't know how that works out, but
Hmm.
so I knew that being working in an animal hospital here for the last 30 years, we got to be very good friends with the people that owned that pet cemetery. And they would tell us all the time. They knew that my wife and I were into the paranormal, and they would come and tell us stories when they come to pick up animals that were brought to us either dead or dying, or animals that we had to euthanize. We would call them, and they would come so they could bury them. They would tell us stories about all the spirit activity there, both human and animal,
Yeah.
at their cemetery. So there was one area you bring up horses. There was one area there that was uh, equine
Hmm.
burials, and it was all horses buried in this one area of the pet cemetery. They also had a circus elephant there that everybody would see from time to time roaming around this cemetery, this famous circus elephant. I went there once to try and capture the elephant. I went to his gravesite and I put shelled peanuts all over his gravesite, and I left this huge poster board there with baby powder all over it, figuring I would capture his footprint and then I could spray it with hairspray and frame it. So when
Oh
we
my
came
God.
back about 30 minutes later, we'd heard some noises, and we went back there, and some of the peanuts were gone. Now there were some cockroaches around, so I thought maybe some of them got stolen by cockroaches, but not that many. I mean, there were some peanuts like something big had eaten them, gone.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
my
I've
poster
had a
board.
similar experience leaving food out, but in the middle of a massive, wide, probably 30-foot wide creek on a boulder with all this rushing water. I put like little things out there, and something has come and taken them or rearranged them in a pattern.
Well, we know what that is.
Yeah. I
Um,
I
you've you,
really
you've
uh,
already met him.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that anymore.
Well, let me
But
tell you. So my poster board is pushed down as though, and it's warped, as though something really heavy stepped on it, but it didn't leave a print. I was so
hmm,
bummed out. But while we were there, we heard horses. And there's
oh,
no
yeah.
ranches or farms around there. There's condos around the whole pet cemetery.
Yeah.
But you could hear them galloping, the hooves in the dirt and
Mhm,
the
yeah.
grass. And so
Interesting.
here's my question to you: do they get trapped here also like that, or do you think they much more freely than we do as disembodied souls? Do they travel in and out like that?
I think it is different for animals in that respect. Um, I was gonna get to it in a minute, but when we pass, we either go to purgatory or heaven, or as other people in different disciplines or religions or spiritual beliefs, they believe in reincarnation. They all have a similar belief that at death, that's when it happens, right? You're either gone or you're not gone. To me, I don't have the belief that what we're dealing with ghosts are people that are stuck here. That's not what
Oh,
I
that's
believe
right.
at
We've
all.
talked
Not
about that. That's
anymore.
right. That's right. That's
Not
right.
anymore. But with animals, I think they do wait, because the most important part of the whole thing I'm going to say today, and we mentioned it at the death of people they see only loved ones or beloved pets. Love is a spiritual law. It's a spiritual force. So God is love. Love is everywhere. We call it the Holy Spirit. It permeates the entire universe. But science is also wondering, what is all this dark energy and all this stuff that we can't explain? There's this huge percentage of stuff out there that they can't even identify. So we have physical laws, law of thermodynamics, gravity. We see what those things do, right? Gravity keeps us down on the earth, but we don't know where gravity really came from. They still don't know where the influence of gravity is coming from, and they can't explain it. But we also have, besides physical laws, God wrote into the universe his spiritual laws. And love is the tip top, prima spiritual law. It is the whole reason the universe exists, according to even occult principles, as well as Christian principles, if you're able to explain it and point out, it's such a debate with Christians. But love holds everything together. It's the glue that holds the universe together. It permeates everything. So when I say it holds everything together, if you look at it from an occultic perspective, the macrocosm, the microcosm, there are these patterns in the universe. They're always repeated. So with love, holding everything together, it holds man and wife together, mother and child together. It holds families together. It, in the occult disciplines, in the great arcanum beliefs, it holds planets in their orbit. I'm speaking figuratively in the spiritual sense. I'm not talking about gravity or centripetal force holding them going around. Don't get crazy. But it holds things in place. It holds order in place. And love is 100% good. It's creative. So anything good is going to be creative. So with love, because it holds everything together, we love our pets and our pets love us back. It has to be a two-way tie to have that magnetism happen between two people or a family to see each other after death in the spiritual realm. So with pets, I think there is that magnetism, that force of love, that spiritual law that holds them together with us. But because we either go to heaven or we go to purgatory or wherever other people think we go, the pets will wait. So they're not trapped here. They're just waiting here because they are attached to us. So if you look at the hierarchy of heaven, we have the angels. The angels in the hierarchy are above us in certain attributes and character traits. So they look after us. Then we have us. We were given dominion over the animal kingdom. We are to look after the animals. In the Bible, and especially in the ancient Hebrew texts, God talks about never torture an animal. Don't do that. That is like, a terrible sin, where if you're butchering them for food or whatever, make sure that they are dead and make sure they're not suffering. I look around today and I see a lot of places where animals are really suffering, and people have been taught that animals aren't conscious, sovereign, divine beings with souls. They don't see them as such. They think the word dominion over animals means, or have domain over the animals means, they're your slaves or you own them. That's not what it means. So yes, people took life for food. But if you go back to the Garden of Eden, it's so complex. So Eve listens to the talking snake. It's called a nakash. Well, in the Garden of Eden, all the animals communicated. They all talked. They were immortal, just like Adam and Eve would have been immortal until God said no more, just like the angels are immortal. They're finite, but they're immortal. And we were too in Eden, according to the biblical story. Well, the animals spoke to us. Nobody ate meat. Everybody
Uh,
had.
Actually, verbally, or was it more of a psychic connection,
It was
speaking?
it was probably a psychic connection, but it was as clear as I'm speaking now when communication happened. The angels communicate the same way. They first ask permission. Can I communicate with you? Yes. Boom. Totally clear. They don't have physical mouths unless they're coming down here and manifesting as a human, where they're lowering their vibration and becoming from light to matter, from spirit to body. But nobody ate meat in the Garden of Eden. That's very clear in the Bible, where God says, I'll give you all these plants, and all the animals have all these plants. Everybody's going to eat plants and fruit. But when Eve had the conversation with the Nakash, the serpent, she believed she was talking to an animal. Well, that was Lucifer manifesting as a serpent. Serpents have the metaphoric allegory of wisdom as well as something dangerous, something that will strike fast. I mean, there is so much metaphor and symbolism attached to a serpent or a snake. But here she's looking at a serpent, and it's talking to her like all the other animals do. And it says, very calmly, here, take this. You're not going to die. Everything's okay. Well, when she fell, death entered the world, right? That's the whole reason the entire epic story unfolds. That's the catalyst. The minute she did that, then Christ had to come, and all of salvation and redemption and all of that. So when that moment happened, suddenly death came into the world for us, but it also came into the world for the animals. So now animals die. Also, God suddenly gave them skins of animals he had to harvest, to give them clothing, because Eden was no longer Eden. If you look at it from a very metaphysical point of view, when that happened with Eve, the entire universe went down a vibration and it became physical. It was no longer in between heaven and earth, where Eden was a very high vibrational place. You weren't fully physical there. So, and there's a lot of reasons I can go into in another lecture for that. But we mourn the death of our pets, whereas immortals ourselves, we have to watch generations of our beloved pets pass. And it's like every 10 years or every 14 years, it's this horrible landmark event in our lives. But we were the cause of it. When we fell, they were so connected to us, intentionally so by God. They were under our care. When we fell, they fell. Also, another thing you have to remember is we all know that demons are attracted to suffering. So when you're mean to an animal, even just verbally, or speak down to them like, they're nothing, the demons love that. You're feeding the demons.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the devil said, I'm going to make animals really insignificant when maybe they're very important. I know that God loves all of his creations, all of his creatures. And he didn't just make things to just be, oh, here, have this living conscious being that has a soul and feels feelings. Let's just eat them all. That wasn't the original intention. We can blame that on Lucifer. We can blame that on Satan, which is just a title for Lucifer.
Do you mind me asking if are you a vegetarian or vegan or?
No, well, here's the awful thing is when we became fully physical out of Eden, our bodies needed meat. We're made of meat. And as the laws in nature go, if you observe nature, plants eat eat decomposing plant material. We know demons feed on emotions. They're spiritual beings. They feed on spiritual food. We're made of meat. We need other meat to survive. And it kills us when we have to. I mean, Native Americans would go out and do big prayers and rituals, and then the animal would step into view. They would take the life. They would use every piece of it. So it's like The old movie or the old book Interview with the Vampire. I'm not talking about the series that's out right now. I think that is absolutely just awful. But
Yeah, I didn't
in
watch it. I
in
didn't.
Louis's character, the way Anne Rice wrote him, I found it fascinating. He was a vampire that did not want to kill humans, but he had to in order to live. So when you ask me if I eat meat, yes, I do. But every time I eat it, I'm like Louis. I don't like it. It makes me cringe, but I know if I don't eat it, I'm weak and I can't think.
Hmm, interesting. I eat meat.
Of course.
Since
And
I was
and
a
I
little
don't
baby,
I
so it's
don't
just. I
it
wish I could. I've thought about trying. I mean, you can take supplements too to make up for that.
yeah.
'Cause, but
But
I can't
after a
break the
certain
habit.
point, I mean, I don't eat meat every day. God no. I if I eat red meat, it's like maybe at someone's house for a barbecue. I don't know, but I don't like it. I There's always something subconscious working in me saying you don't need to do this. But I love the taste of meat. I'm like a
Now, let me ask you
vampire that
another
does not
question.
want to kill
Why
to
do
eat.
some? I know I'm going to get hate mail for this. I
I
don't
know.
not. I'm not throwing everybody into the same tub here, but I have met really some very aggressive, mean vegans that will
I
just
don't think
almost
veganism
beat
is
you
good.
up and when you talk about eating meat.
No, I know. I think yeah, I'm not a vegan. I'm not like obsessed with what I eat. And I definitely if someone invites me to their home and they prepare a meal, I don't care if it's the ickiest liver in the world.
I love
You know,
liver.
I'm going to respect them
Yeah,
and eat the meal and be gracious. At home, I probably won't prepare anything if I can get away with it just because I just don't really like it, but I have to eat it. I need it. It's not for everyone else, if they love it, okay. It happened in the Garden of Eden. How long ago was that? Eons and eons and eons ago. It just is. When we became physical, we had a need to consume what we are. And that is another thing that I talk about with the patterns written into the universe. When the more physical you become, the more dense you are, not dense here, but dense in matter, and you're consuming meat in order
I'm a.
just to keep this body functioning.
I have to ask you this too. Get all real deep on you here. So, thou shalt not kill. Is it a
Yeah,
sin to kill the animals?
no, because murder is a sin. Murder is, gratuitous killing for no reason whatsoever. You know, uh, to kill, you have a right to take life, to kill, if you're protecting yourself or those you love or care for. By divine right, you have that right. If you're defending yourself or protecting those you love and those you care for. When you kill an animal, it's for survival. You don't waste it. You respect it. You respect the life that it gave. It's part of the cycle of life. No. And if you look at the concept of sacrifice, right? When the animals were sacrificed by the ancient Israelites and Hebrews, they would do a sacrifice, but what's not said in the Bible, again, is one of those things that ancient people knew. Ancient people knew animals had souls. So that animal was like a holy death that goes straight to heaven. Well, animals go straight to heaven anyway. And I'll tell you why. Because they're spotless. They didn't commit the sin that created fallen humans that brought us into this physical realm where we have original sin continuing. That didn't happen to them. Their redemption isn't, they don't have redemption. They don't have atonement. When you go to the veterinary clinic, you have a very old suffering pet. It's not the same as hospice where somebody goes, I just want to die now. Where to a Catholic, that's a mortal sin. You're committing suicide or helping someone to commit suicide. Animals, on the other hand, they're innocent and they're spotless. That's why they were used as sacrifices. The people knew they immediately went to God. They immediately went to the happy heaven, the happy sheep heaven or whatever. So it was different. And so you see the analogy with the Lamb of Christ, right? The Lamb of God, sorry. It was
Well, it's
Christ.
interesting that you bring the clinic up because in the many years I've been working in the animal care industry, I've lost track of how many people that have, came in off of the want ad, applied for a job, and when they found out that we euthanized there, they wouldn't work. The flip side of that coin, many owners have brought in such sick animals at time, and
Hmm.
when they get the diagnosis from the doctor that there's nothing we can do, and he's suffering, do you
You're
want
not
us
to
to?
let animals suffer. Now there's gratuitous
Some
euthanizing.
people get really upset and go, no, I'll just take them home and he'll die in his sleep. We'll make him comfortable, he'll die in his sleep. But it's your hands are tied. It's their pet. You have to let them do that. But
I,
I don't get it.
well, now take it to the other side, though. If it's a human being, it's completely different. Completely different. There is redemption and atonement involved in the human suffering. There is redemption in our suffering, not just for us, but for the people that are caring for us and witnessing. With an animal, like I said, they don't atone. They don't have to have redemption. They don't aren't born with original sin as we are. They don't have anything to work out. They don't have karma. They don't have any of that stuff that goes by other names. So I think that with pets, if a pet is suffering or a pet is going to die, no matter what happens, there we that's what it means by we have charge over the animals, dominion or domain over the animals, is we are not to allow them to suffer
I
unnecessarily.
am totally in agreement with you on that, and now I'm probably going to bring up a topic that um, maybe you are comfortable talking about it. Maybe you're not. If you're not, you know me. Just say let's
No,
move
I'll
on. But
talk about anything. Go for it.
well, you mentioned demons. You and I both had our fair share of run-ins with them in our lifetime. And we're on the topic of the animals. Everybody knows that one of the first things they look for when they uh, psychically diagnose or psychologically diagnose like a serial killer would be usually they find out they abused and killed animals when they were little. Now you have
Yeah,
these like
well,
these
the
sex
devil.
shows and over across the
Oh
border you go to these
gosh,
weird
yeah.
bars and you witness bestiality. What's up with that? I mean,
It's a mortal sin, and it's not just because you're leaving your estate of humanity and going into the estate of the animal kingdom, which is a completely different realm. We're not to do that. But to do that, it's still a mortal sin because you are hurting and committing a crime against a sovereign being which does possess a soul, i.e., animals. They're born with free will also, to the capacity that they have to make choices.
yeah. And even the people that go and watch these things for enjoyment, I believe,
It's a
is a
mortal
sin.
sin. It at the very least, it's one of the seven deadly sins. We know what a sin is.
Yeah.
I don't, because I wasn't raised or born or a full on Christian person until just the last few years. Um, I didn't have the commandments memorized. I didn't know what the seven deadly sins were, but I always knew it's written.
It's on your soul. You
It's
just know.
written in our hearts by God. After he made a covenant with us, you will always know what right and wrong is because God wrote it upon our hearts. No one has to tell us. We know the difference between right and wrong. But if you were to ask someone today what is a right, they'd go, huh? What do you mean? They don't know because it's so inverted and screwed up now. But when it comes to animals, the devil does not like animals. He'll appear as one, he'll send them, he'll use them, but really he is constantly trying to put the narrative in or to leave things unsaid about the fact that animals have a living soul, that they go to heaven. It's just right there in front of us. If you have eyes to see, go look. It's there. You'll find it in the Bible. You will find it just in logic and reason. Go to philosophy. Tell me what an animal is not, and what's left is what it is. It's a loving, conscious, beautiful creature that when you look at the angel human animal hierarchy, like I was discussing, we are somewhere between God has the angels in between us and God. And then there's the angelic beings, which are sort of like, in the middle. With domesticated animals, our pets, there's us, and then there's the wild animals. The domesticated animals are in that middle area as well, just like the angels are. They teach us about survival in the wild and how animals are, but they're not wild. There's something in between. So that hierarchy keeps repeating. The patterns always repeat in God's universe. So logic and reason can tell us, through philosophy, everything you want to know about our animals, possessing a soul. And so the devil hates them. So yeah. And you asked me about familiars. I'm not so sure that today's familiars are anything but somebody got a cat and that's their cat. Now, a
You do
supernatural
have a
familiar.
we have a comment here, a really nice comment from Linda Morrison. Hi, Linda. Her first comment was about uh, she eat. Did you say yeah? She doesn't. She I could live without meat, but it's sugar.
Yeah, me too,
You know
Melinda.
what, Linda? I'm off the sugar now too. You know what I'm using now? Truvia. It's delicious. It's an all natural plant based sweetener um, that was recommended to me by a doctor, and I love it. But she also mentioned that she worked at an animal rescue, which is very very cool. And yeah, I don't like to see him suffer either. And what they started doing, if I'm in on a euthanasia, they always kind of enjoy watching me pray over it and then actually be the one that takes them back to the back where they're going to wait until they're picked up. So, um, yeah,
Animals respond to prayer. I don't know if anybody out there has noticed this besides me, but when I pray the rosary or I pray in Latin where I'm just droning it out, 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 my dogs will come and huddle. They'll come from other
yeah.
rooms, they'll come in from outside, they just pick up on that energy and they just want to huddle. So, animals, well, gosh, there's places, in the Bible where it talks about animals praising God. I think one of them's in Revelation where they're like they praise God. I think animals sense God better than we do. They may even be able to hear the voice of God. You know.
Speaking of
I
animals,
actually, yeah. Speaking of animals, you got something furry that popped up.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I like
where?
being petted every once in a while too. So,
we
uh,
we heard that.
yeah. uh, actually, with what you just said, is the whole reason I was going to come on. Um, I've noticed a lot of times that we have dogs, and the dogs will be paying attention to nothing, but they're paying attention to something.
Oh no,
Okay,
there's something
yeah,
there.
yeah, we can't see what it is. Do you believe? And Shawn, this might be a good one for you too. Do
Yes,
you
Zach, I
believe
do
that
believe.
we don't use animals enough when we go out to do investigations?
Okay,
Because dogs can be a
stop right
huge
there.
tool.
Stop right there. Use your dogs on your investigations, and they will self train to hunt what you hunt. I'll give you an example. When I studied power places for 8 years, I was always looking for the blossoming energy sites where the telluric currents would cross. You can measure them with instruments. So I'm not talking about woo woo. I'm talking about something that's actual earth energy. And that's where you would find all the archaeology because the ancient people also dowsed and they also felt it. Over the years, my dogs would go left when I was going right, and I'd get so angry. Get over here. We're going this way. We're going up on that hill. I know there's something up there. Finally, I'd have to go chase them down, and they would be at the exact spot that my tri-field meter would go off.
Hmm.
Then I would look a little closer. Sure enough, there was a cairn, there was an Inukshuk, there was an ossuary, there was something. There was archaeology there. Your dogs will begin to hunt what you hunt. If you're trying to sense ghosts or sense whatever demons or whatever, they're all demons to me now, but whatever you're sensing, your dogs will begin to sense because they have been in this symbiotic relationship with us for thousands of years. They've been bred for that. If it's a bird dog, they'll look for birds, you know.
Well, Shawn, Adrian has talked to you plenty of times about uh, the house that we're in. Um, my dog, before I had to put him down, Brody, he did not like being left alone in the basement. He hated it. This
Well,
is where
he's
my office is. This is where I always, and that could be why he didn't like being down here, is because I was down here. But no, he was
no,
really
no.
the
They
dog.
sense. They'll
Mm,
sense. They'll
yeah,
sense the diabolic. They'll sense it, and anything that is normal is repelled by the diabolic. A dog you can't fool. You know, demons can often fool us and seem really bright, you know, happy, you know, beautiful creature, whatever appears in the forest. Dogs don't. Dogs see the truth. They
well,
have a repulsion against negativity like that. And it's funny. I know that they see spiritual beings for sure. I could tell you a million stories, but there's a real funny story in the Bible about Balaam's donkey. So Balaam was a sorcerer. You know, that's the whole. What he was doing was a whole nother story, but he was a quote unquote wicked sorcerer. And he had a donkey, and he's riding this donkey along this road, and the donkey just stops. You know this story, Shawn?
No.
The donkey stops, and he starts beating the donkey, and the donkey will not go, and he's beating the heck out of the donkey. And finally he tells the donkey, I'm going to take this sword and I'm going to stab you if you don't move forward. Well, he doesn't realize that donkey is understanding him, because we don't realize our animals do understand our language. They've heard it enough. And the donkey, suddenly God allows the donkey to speak, and the donkey is a female, and she says something like, have I ever done this to you before? And he was like so shocked. He said, no, you haven't. And she goes, well, then don't you see what I see? No, Balaam didn't see anything, and he was a sorcerer. He should have been, you know, perceiving all kinds of things. Well, it was the angel of the Lord standing there, and the donkey saw it, but the human didn't. And then the angel of the Lord finally appears right after Balaam says, well, I'm going to take that sword and run you through it for being so insolent. Not in those words, but basically that was the message. And the angel of the Lord finally appears to Balaam and says, if you do, I'm going to kill you. So that
wow.
story tells us quite a few things. It's a loaded story.
Well, I absolutely love this show today. I think that you're doing a great job. But the whole thing
Oh,
about dogs being smart, the only thing I
yeah.
wanted to get our Dalmador for Christmas was the slower tail so he could catch it. So I'm not sure if they're that smart,
Well,
but
don't,
I love my dogs.
if your dog is suffering in the basement or having trouble, don't force them down there.
No. He's Brody is gone. We
Oh,
had to put Brody down a while back. So but no, this is a new one that he would be happy wherever he's at. So he's a great dog. So
yeah.
but
And
thank you for answering that.
of course, hang out. So, Shawn, when you become, you're going to become a holy father, a priest. So when that happens, you can do pet blessings. Besides house blessings, you can do pet blessings.
I do it now.
And that's great. And that's great for infestation.
Yeah.
You know, your dogs don't get possessed. We call it infestation, but it really is like your dogs get possessed. Mine
The
was
one
possessed.
thing I have experienced in my many years of doing this is that when my spidey senses are up, and I'm almost 100% sure that a location I'm going to go to is infested, I always ask that the family take the young children and the animals out, because once I show up, the provocation is such that they lash out and they go after the animals and the kids. And I used to take my dogs uh, ghost hunting, especially at the pet cemetery, because they would find all these. I thought they could have been human, but I just assumed they were animal spirits that they were finding. They would look at stuff and wag their tail and jump around and play with things I couldn't see there. So they would have a great time. But we would go to certain areas of the cemetery where they would refuse to go. And I knew how I knew. I don't know how I knew, but
You
I would
feel
just
it,
not go
or
too. If they didn't want to go, I didn't want to go.
oh, but tell me you feel it when you're in the presence of evil. Don't you have a pretty good detector just built into you? I do. I mean, I can just be driving down the road and I'll get that feeling and I'll look over and there's a homeless person, batting at the sky and screaming. They're under diabolic influence, if not possessed. I mean, I really sense it. And I know you do too, or you have to, because of what you've spent so much of your life doing. If you didn't have that gift of discernment, you wouldn't have gotten very far in your investigations. You would have just given up and said, "This is bullshit." Oh, sorry for swearing.
That's
Whoops.
okay. Well, that's why I stopped taking my pets on investigations because I would feel so bad when I saw them get really scared at certain
Mm.
times. I just felt really bad. And I felt like, I can't hear them. I'm not giving them a choice. I'm just saying, jump in the car. They think they're going for a ride, and then I take them to a spooky place. I would start feeling guilty if they got weirded out, so I stopped taking them. But
John, that's why you get kids. You
yeah,
take them to the spooky places and
yeah, you can put leashes on kids, and you send them in first. You know, uh,
oh, oh, I'm gonna
Zach, are
see.
there Zach, are there any questions in the audience that we didn't cover?
There was one. I've got one from Charles Rudd from the very beginning, but it's not really about. It's not about animals, but this is an interesting question, and I'm hoping maybe you guys can help him out with this.
had a visitation last night by two witches last night, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. I'm not sure if he saw them in a dream or in a vision, or if physically two witches came and saw him and he couldn't understand what they were saying.
Okay,
Not
if
sure.
it's the last one, take some language lessons. But if it's the other two, if it's in a dream, um, many dreams, nothing is clear. Especially if you get a book in a dream and you're given a book to read, you can't see the letters. It's very rare.
Hmm.
A lot
Very
of
interesting.
times, you'll have visitations, and if you really think about your dreams, you're not sitting down, talking about philosophy or you're just on the move, at least, from the research I've read of people's dreams. I mean, it's either very, very metaphoric and allegoric, or it's you're on the move, you're doing something, you're not sitting down and actually having a conversation. So I'm not surprised that he couldn't understand what they were saying, because that's just how dreams seem to compose themselves. And we're not supposed to know some things. So if we're visited by either whatever, to me, diabolic, um, we're not supposed to know what they're telling us. So you may have had a divine intervention.
Charles, if it was a dream, get this book. It's called The Big
Book of
Dictionary of
Dreams.
Dreams. And it's a wonderful book. I analyze dreams all the time out of it.
So I think like I said, if you're not able to discern something from a witch, a sorcerer, a demon, whatever, you may have had divine intervention, because there are some things we are not supposed to know. And that goes into the whole subject of fallen magic. Where did magic come from? It was stolen, and it was brought down with the 200 fallen. That's a whole nother presentation. But anything that's stolen is cursed. So if you dream about witches and sorcerers, and they're going to tell you some great secret, some mystery from the great arcanum or ancient Egypt or whatever, that was brought here by the fallen angels, 200 on Mount Hermon. It was led by Shemzaza and Azazel. So
I love you, right?
I
I
love you
I
too.
I'm so glad you. I really didn't really. I mean, we were texting when you accepted my offer, but I
Yeah.
wanted to tell you in person that I was so honored that you agreed to come on once a month, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see you next month. It's going to be very cool. You just let me know what your topic is a few days before the show, and that's how I'll promote it. And then, um,
Hey, Shawn, we just got one more in real
sure.
quick.
I
I
wonder.
wonder how you feel about pet cremation. I live in a rural area and do not bury animals that pass. I don't want predators digging up remains.
Yeah, I don't, I can't, well, I can't speak as a professional, pet cemetery person, but I can speak spiritually. It doesn't matter. The Catholic Church used to say you can only be buried because you're going to rise up in the same body. I'm not so sure that that's exactly what God means. I mean, we're only humans, and sometimes we spin it a little bit. Now the Catholic Church does cremation. Me myself, I would prefer to be cremated, dust to dust. You know, it's doesn't matter if dust to dust happens in a body or if it happens. It's all going to be obliterated anyway. You know, resurrection is going to happen anyway spiritually. You'll have your
Here's
same
another quick one I'm
spiritual
going to
body.
throw at you before I have to say goodbye to you. It's from Anne Marie Young. Hi, Anne. I had a dog that got hit by a car and died. That night we heard scratching on the door like he did 100 times before. When I ran to the door, nothing was there, but it was him. And he stayed for years until I let him go back at the back. I think she's saying back at door. Back.
Yeah, that was him.
Oh yeah, and I've got pets here too um, that I
Yeah,
moved in here with, and even my life before this that have followed me
everybody
here
says it.
and see them,
Everybody.
feel them, hear them. My other dogs see them and
Yeah, they're
play with.
waiting. They're waiting. They are, you know, attached to us and we are attached to them. Love holds all things together. And I've actually said this to a human being, a father who lost his son to suicide. You know, he was concerned about, will I see him again? What happens after death? You know, this was not a Christian person, but nevertheless, he wanted to know where is his son? And I said, you will definitely see him again because love holds you together. And there is no God that I could even imagine that is, you know, we hear God is good, God is love. There is no God on earth that would keep us from those we love, whether they be our pets, our
Well, I
family
also
members.
wanted you to know, watching here with us on the show today, who wants to say bye to you, is Saint Francis.
Oh, you know, St. Francis, there's a 14th century text with St. Francis. They discuss his life, and he would preach to the birds and all the animals in the forest, but he wasn't preaching, he was praying, and they were all coming in and listening. And someone heard him call a wolf, brother wolf. So there you go. Another example that animals, you know, they love prayer, and that St. Francis, who had great insight, actually felt that it was efficacious for them to hear it.
I want you to have a wonderful. Charles says it was a real visitation. I've had NDE before, and it was not crazy person. Very
No, you're
good.
not crazy. You are not crazy. I listen. I I practice like high level occult, Golden Dawn magic, Enochian tablets. I mean, well, yeah, no, you're not crazy.
May all your dreams and wishes come true for 2023. One of mine already did, having you here every month. So have a great remainder to your Friday
Thank
evening. Have a
you.
great weekend. I love you. I respect you. Can't wait for
Yeah,
next month. And I'll be in touch. I'll see
thank
you
you,
next month.
and God bless everybody. Pax to come. Peace be upon you.
Have a great night.
You too.
I'll see you later. She'll be here first Friday of next month, guys, and every first Friday of every month this year. So this is going to be a great series. I love her. She's so cool. All righty. I'll be here Monday, January 9th. This is going to be a great show. Susan Ahern, I know it's not Happy Medium Monday, but Susan Ahern's going to be here. She's bringing a very special friend with her, Mr. Frank Durant. He is a producer, director, filmmaker, and the two of them worked on his latest film, The Lady of the Dunes, and great unsolved murder mystery involving spirits that they're both going to come and talk about the movie. So that's going to be great on Monday. Um, Thank you all for showing up. I don't have a show without you guys. I hope you guys had a good time. I know I did. Communitypayitforward.us. Communitypayitforward.us. Go there. Find somebody that needs some help, and if you can help them, help them. My church, usocc.org. usocc.org. Go there and check it out if you're interested in knowing about my church. If you're interested in Bible study, which is Wednesdays and Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Pacific, or interested in night prayer, which is Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific, go to bishopjameslong.com, and he's got the links there for both those on his homepage. Um, Thank you to Adrian and Zach Clayton. Couldn't do the show without them, my co producers. Thank you to Things Network. Thank you to Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment. Thank you to Skeleton Key Network. Thank you to Pact, Little P, capital ACT, podcasting all coming together channel for all simulcasting my show. God bless you all for doing that. And it's bad joke time. I'm going to pull a bad joke that one of you sent in out of this haunted carnival barker hat and try to put a smile on everybody's face before I say good night and have a great weekend. What should a sick bird do? Get treatment. Good night, Danny. Good night, Jack. Good night, Dog. Good night, Harold. Rest in peace. Good night, Ernie. Good night, Bill. Good night, Dan. I love you all. Peace.